Rescue Rangers, Chippendales,
Yeah,
Disney, the
the,
movie, but they
the
also have the
movie.
TV show too, right? The cartoon.
So it's the movie,
Okay,
right?
okay, okay, okay.
And I really want you to watch it, but so you know how sometimes they do movies and it's like separate from like a video game, like Sonic is separate from the video game, but they take references from the game,
Yeah.
right? Well, this one is acting as though the movie and the TV show are one. So what it
Oh,
does, it talks about their lifestyle before the TV show, and then they incorporate the TV show as a part of the story. Like they
oh
got
shit.
older, then they became
Yeah.
cool, went out to Hollywood, made this show. You might have heard of Chippendale Rescue Ranger, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then it goes from there. Um, and so there's just there like I was referred by another friend to watch it, and I'm just like, okay, I guess I'll because I had gotten done watch Sonic 2. I was like, okay, and I heard that there was the ugly Sonic on there, right? I don't know if you heard about the fiasco that happened while the first Sonic came out. There was
No.
this digital version of Sonic that was created, and they did a trailer of it, and people were like, "Oh my god, it's ugly!" So the people from the Sonic movie, right? They had to take time out to do a reproduction and reskin the Sonic into a better looking Sonic, right? Because it was like try to make it more authentic or realistic, but then people didn't like it. They wanted the more cartoon look. So that was a big deal. And so what happens in the movie? There's the original looking Sonic, and they call it the ugly Sonic, and he's in the movie. So there's a lot of parody, parody into the movie within its own jokes of the show, and a little bit more adult on how they approach certain things. Um, there's a lot of cameos in it too. There's a lot of cameos in it from different games or from different cartoons, games, things like that, which I was quite surprised because it's a Disney thing. You don't think they'll refer to other properties.
But those are all properties they own, right? All the features or all the guest spots.
Well, Sonic isn't, so I was wondering how they got that. Then they did, yeah, so they had Ugly Sonic in there.
Whoa.
Um, and then some other things were like video game reference or whatever. So I was like, how do they get that in? I guess you know what? No, take that back. They had Sonic in when they did Wreck It Ralph. So because they had a lot of game references in that too. But this one also had TV shows and stuff like that.
Do you think
Um,
that was made for adults? That
oh, the
cartoon
joke, yeah, the joke,
or
the
the
joke.
movie? The movie. The
I mean,
movie.
I'll put
Sorry.
it this way. I put when I heard that it was kind of funny and he was surprised and laughing. I was just like, they have to reference Chippendales, the dancers, right? The male dancers. Well, they do,
Of
and I'm
course.
putting it up. They reference it because they put it into a form of our reality, but they're incorporated with theirs
Mm,
where cartoons and humans live together.
mm. So it's almost like they're selling you a reality version of Chippendales.
Yes. So, and part of the show, right? The movie is you have one person, he's CGI, right?
Okay.
And the other one's cartoon. And so the story in part of it is that they without this is nothing that's spoilers, right?
No, it's all
The
good.
the story the stories the story is that some cartoons could have CGI surgery, so it's kind of like plastic surgery for them.
Mm,
So they look better, right? So they
mm,
have CGI, they look CGI now instead of a
mm.
cartoon, so they can look better, you know.
Yeah.
And so you have that part where you have some people CGI, some don't, and things like that. So it goes in and out.
Mm.
It's
Interesting.
it's, but the movie it's like I said, I I think it's pretty freaking funny. So I don't smoke, but I'd probably tell someone to smoke it. Smoke it if you got it and watch it because it's kind of funny and the references that they do. There's what I would have to tell you off because I mean, well, I guess not too many people listen to this. Um, there's the one that had me in tears, right? Do you remember any of the other characters on Chippendale Rescue Rangers?
Not by name, but if you describe them, I'm pretty sure I can remember him.
Do you remember Monterey Jack?
Yes.
Okay, you're the one that like right. So, so there's a scene, man, and I was in tears when this happened. There's a scene right where probably this is the best part of the whole movie. There's a scene where like I think Dale gets the call and it's just like, "Hey man," and she was like, "Monterey Jack, you okay?" It's like, "Yeah, just come over." And then they get to Monterey Jack's house. He's like knocked on the door. Monterey Jack's hella like paranoid. He opens the door. Is that you? He's like, close the door, and he looks just haggard, right? He's like, "Hey, Mike, what's going on, Mike?" Blah blah blah. Blah. He was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I got into a tough life, and I got addicted to the cheese, man. like the cheese was his addiction, right? And so he owed some crime lord money for his cheese addiction."
Man.
And so they're acting like he was on crack, like he was just looking like really bad. Like, "I can't help it, man. I love cheese, man. Like, I can't." So it was like this whole look of him looking like haggard. I was so weak because how they referenced it, it was like drugs. The cheese was like drugs to him.
That is like reality TV 101 right there.
Bruh, yeah. And so there's other parts of it where they reference it. It was like, that's pretty funny. So I was surprised. I mean, I don't want to hype it up, but I was surprised. It was pretty funny, man. It was pretty funny.
It's interesting that something like that, because that was an interesting time for cartoons in the 90s going, into our nostalgia portion of our show. Like, like we reference quite a bit of them. Like I said, when I was listening to some of the old, stuff, I was like, this is hilarious. Yeah. How much we just talk about, a lot of cartoons, Rescue Rangers being one of them. So the way that we relate to, the TV show, however we related to it, I can't even put that into words as a kid, but the fact that it's re-released, meaning clearly there's a desire or a need or a want to have this in this style where they're separating themselves from the character, and then they have this persona outside of the characters we remember, almost as if they were kid actors, right? Like how we would see Saved by the Bell, how we revere Saved by the Bell, and Power Rangers to an extent, if you're into that shit. And it's like, dude, they just did this with a cartoon. We are looking at these cartoon characters as real people now that play the characters that we once loved. Like, this is happening. Like, this is strange.
I mean, I love that they did that, because to me, that was like, it was like, so I'm like, okay, they're going to make a movie. They're going to reboot it. Like, I don't really like that, but all right, let's see what they're going to do. But then instead of saying they reboot it, they're like, no, this is my story. This is my beginning story. Mm-hmm. And then that show that you were, that was me acting, mm-hmm. Now I'm a has-been actor. Mm-hmm. Now we're trying to figure out what we're doing with our life afterwards, right? So we're like, we're trying to do with right? And so it's a movie about, it's a satire in itself. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so it's like, and so it creates like it creates the reality, like the realistic feeling to it. Mm. And then some of the jokes are like a realistic feel, but funny, but like completely real to them. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you're watching, it's like, okay, and even certain references, like it's funny because we see it, it is like, you have to watch it. Just when you get it's just like there's certain parts of it, I'm just like, I'm laughing about it, right?
I'll
like,
peep it. Mm-hmm.
So, and then they have like a fake Comic-Con for, has-been cartoons that are still trying
to, man,
like or like, like, I mean, not that like has-been actors or cartoons are signing autographs,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, many years ago I was in this.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Because I've been to Comic-Con a bunch of times. I actually met Lou Ferrigno, right?
Oh, dope.
I was just like, hey Lou, can I get a picture? He said $25. I was like, no, it's not that important.
Oh man. Then he turned green.
on my phone, right? Like I was like, and he was like $25. I was like, no. Yeah. But that was also met Jeannie Buss.
Oh yeah, sure. You talked
like
about
not like met, like it was a bit more like took a picture with her and
chatted.
Just chatted a little bit, but yeah. So yeah, so that was so it like I was surprised that I enjoyed it. I was really surprised that I enjoyed it.
Interesting spin on a classic kids cartoon, like
And
you
it's
said.
weird.
Yeah.
It's how classic is it? Because I feel like not a lot of people watch that one, and I remember
Uh,
loving it.
I would assume that Disney had the in on some kind of algorithm or something to know that there was a desire or fandom for it. Because like I said, like it was in the barrage of how many cartoons that were going on at that time. I mean, I think the way that it seems we're viewing a lot of things in reflection is like the music felt like that, cartoons felt like that, video games felt like that, right? Where we're getting to the point where now we have 20, 30, almost 40 years of entertainment in this style, so we're able to kind of compare and contrast at least what we're thinking of what we've
Mm-hmm.
lived through, where before it's like this is just the hottest shit, old shit sucks, this is the shit. But now it's like, well, that old shit's kind of nice, but the new shit's different. And then we have something to kind of go back and forth. So I think that's where Disney figured it out. It's like, look, this is something from the old school. Let's not do a like the examples you talked about, how they kind of a retread or reboot. They're like, no, you know what, let's just make this a reality show. They probably looked at all the statistics and like, look, man, keeping up with the Kardashians, uh real world, all these things have always had this generation watch these cartoons. Let's just, this is our take on it. And
Yeah,
it connects because the references are there, like the classic, oh man, but this cheese, man, after this career, because Hollywood and how they do, behind the Hollywood acting, whatever, behind the screen stuff, they're always like, yeah, he had an addiction with, narcotics, he had an addiction with drinking. And it's like, it's
yeah,
the stereotype stuff, but it's now related to a cartoon. And for us as adults to kind of see that and be able to laugh at that and understand the hypocrisy and the parallels of what a cartoon essentially goes through,
yeah.
same.
I mean, like one of the things I always remember about Chip and Dale. Well, one was the girl that was
The
like
hottest.
the little mouse girl that was hot, but was also like techie and really good at making things. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I love that girl. Right. And I remember like it made me want to create things. So I was like, I wanted to learn how to like build. My imagination was so sick that I wanted to figure out how I can create like a balloon to
Mm-hmm.
lift me out of some cardboard box so I can fly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which was not impossible, but I'm
Yeah.
I was like, can I do this? And I wanted to figure it out if you could, right?
Mm.
Um, but I also remember like not until I got like 13, 14 years old, where I was just like, I'm in Las Vegas. Actually, I think you might have reminded. It was like seventh grade where the first time I went to Las Vegas, I had left school, right?
Uh-huh.
And we drove down to Las Vegas. And I remember not drive, I think we flew, but I remember like seeing like Chippendale, right? And I was like, oh, is that where the Rescue Rangers at? Not knowing it was a man's male dance thing, you know?
Oh yes. Oh, your
Uh,
first time. Yeah, the
yeah, so I,
innocence.
I didn't I
Yes.
didn't know that Chippendale was referred to men stripping or whatever, you know? And
Oh,
so
see, your world was broken right there. It was
I was just
like
like, and then that's when I started to realize that some things that are being made in these cartoons, right? But this is what I felt like I've learned from watching TV. People used to say that TV will rot your brain, but I've learned from TV because I would see like, wait a minute, they reference this. Let me see if this is real, and then I'll look it up and say, oh, this is real,
mm.
or this is what they're referring to, or this is what they mean. Like that. The other part was Monterey Jack. I didn't know that was a cheese until I got a little bit older.
Mm.
Like, well, it was probably like after I saw the show and like a year or two later when I went to the grocery store, I was like, there's actually Monterey Jack cheese. And then it made sense that his name was Monterey Jack
uh,
and he was addicted to cheese. So it was those little things that I was like, oh, okay.
mm.
I would just put two and two together.
Piecing together the world through these avenues of TV. I think you have a point there. I think in the idea that TV, in a lot of ways, kind of visually presented, various points in, history or these moments that have happened in the past. Um, but I think that's also the crazy part is along with possibly really, verbatim trying to the best, presentation of a historic event. On the other hand, there's just blatant like, oh no, it's kind of like that, but not really. And then we're just gonna put that out. And then more or less, it kind of just ultimately becomes, some version of the truth, not necessarily the quote unquote truth, or the accurate representation. It's like, why
Yeah,
do they have to
yeah,
do that? It was so close, and then they just do some nonsense. Like they add this for no reason. Oh, for
yeah. That,
dramatization. It's like, see, this is where it gets a little hazy. You're taking a real event, but then adding some fake shit. This is
yeah.
confusing, motherfucker.
There's a lot of things that I look back like even I joke around. I learned parts of economics through Ducktales. You know,
Mm,
I was
mm,
like, oh, okay.
okay, okay.
Learning a little bit of economics through that. And Uncle Scrooge, like one of them, I always remember was this episode of bottle caps. Right, there was this like land, some secret land that they never been to, and uh, I think someone accidentally dropped a couple bottle caps, and then people were kind of like going crazy because it was rare there, right?
Oh, okay.
And it was rare, and it was like, "What? This is so expensive. Why you can't do this?" It was such a shiny thing. Everybody was like crazy for it, right? And so the inflation of things started to go up because the rarity of the bottle cap, right? We're like, "Oh my god, I can't do it." And then to fix the problem, Launchpad McQuack goes over and then just like because they see there's a problem, so what they do is they go over and they just bombard the whole land with bottle caps, right? Which causes like the value of the bottle cap to go up, right, or go down, right? But the price of bottle caps, like so you say it used to cost you 5 bottle caps to get this shoe. Now because they over flooded it, it costs you $5,000 to get that shoe. You're like, what in the world? Is like, yeah. And then people are sick of the bottle caps, right? So they're like they're they're sick of the bottle caps. So they're like you see that they have so much that they're pushing it out of their driveway. And like the value of the bottle cap means nothing now.
See, is that someone's ideology being kind of intertwined with cartoons? Or are they trying to do just like, I mean, obviously it's an opinion, I guess, at that point,
Mhm.
right? Creative director, creative, direction, I guess, at that point. But that's fascinating that you could pick that up from cartoon, because it is, whether it's, right, real, wrong, whatever, at this point, it is a way to, observe, money systems,
Well, well,
currency,
what
at least in that regard, especially in layman's terms. That's a very simple way to explain it through a cartoon.
Well, I think when I was younger, I didn't realize it. It's not until I got older when they started talking about stuff. It's like, and then you relate things to the earliest experience of stuff for the most part. So you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, it's like the bottle caps episode, you know. And so those are ones I remember a lot about, very specifically. Where I was like, and that's just like I said, I started to look into certain like okay, Big Bang Theory, right?
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay.
So Big Bang Theory, not the theory itself,
The
but
show.
the TV show, right?
Okay.
When they drop something in Big Bang Theory, there's most likely that there's actual not evidence, but it's actually it's pretty factual. So the people who wrote it really looked into whatever they were talking about. So when the people talk about scientific stuff, it seems to be true. Because there was a couple of things that they had talked about, and I was just like, and they're saying it so much. I was like, what if this is true? So I look it up. I'm like, wow. And I would go through other episodes. I'm like, this is all actually factual stuff that they're talking about. Especially if Sheldon talked about it. They definitely made Sheldon in the show when he talks about something. It's not a TV thing when it comes to science. It's not made up. It's there's facts to it.
Do you think those actors will be able to break those characters going forward?
Um,
Especially Sheldon. Will he suffer the Screech situation?
I don't think he's gonna. He was older when he was older.
Screech was.
No, I'm talking about Sheldon.
Oh,
Sheldon was
Sheldon. Okay.
older. Yeah, Screech was a child, and then Crazy
Ah,
had cancer, and then all the other
okay.
stuff. I feel like the stardom affects children. I mean, stardom affects everyone, but definitely not an undeveloped mind, right? And
Okay.
I'll just say that in fairness, there are some kids that can handle it and some can't. But for the most part, you see, especially for some reason, the Disney Channel one, those kids go crazy. Um, yeah, we I mean, come on, we already know that Disney also kind of put in some sexual innuendos in cartoons that we used to watch. Or
That's a fact, right? That's not.
yeah,
That's
like
like
Little
a
Mermaid.
fact.
Like Little Mermaid, the cover was a penis or whatever. Like there was a hidden penis in the drawing.
Mm. I
Um,
recently saw one. Pinocchio had a scene with like some. I think it was. I don't know what Pinocchio movie specifically. Maybe there was this one. I can't really recall. Um, but yeah, it was about like we're gonna take these boys and we're gonna bring them to Pleasure Island. Well, Pleasure Island. It was like one of those things. It's like whoa, and
like Peter
it
Pan and the
continues
Lost
on.
Boys and stuff like that, right? Like kids.
Come on, man. That's what I'm thinking. And these now, these, classics are, I mean, they're out there, but nobody watches them like that. They're just kind of there. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're still the big fandom for them. I don't know. I think it's past, but they're out there, but it's just harder to find or even see references about these things now because there's so many movies under the Disney line. Um, but yes, those things, and like it's in almost every movie. I don't know. There's probably like a whole bunch of compilations out there that just kind of snip it and point all those things out. And it's kind of like, and we could also admit to the idea like those are one of the biggest or most recognized, companies in the world. So that
Yeah.
is strange to have that accolade and have that one as well. Like that is a strange existence, to have. But I don't know.
No, like, well, I mean, in all cases, like, there's always going to be, especially, I mean, there's always going to be businesses and things that people do within that business that are kind of shady that mean people now don't look over or people slide right in as a joke, especially when it has to do with Hollywood, right? Hollywood has always been known to be wild, to say the least, on sexuality, supposedly, even like when they talk about, I don't even want to talk about this one, but sexuality, transgender stuff beforehand, like, you know what I'm saying? Like before it became what it is now, people used to talk about stuff like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I heard this dude's gay, or you go to Hollywood, they're men are sleeping with other men, they're, executives sleeping with each other, things like that, that's always been the case. And supposedly, sometimes when you look back and we watch how they dress certain kids, and you're like, why are you dressing these kids like this? Why are we doing this?
See, that's your point earlier about, the Rescue Ranger thing, but it's just the idea of how TV and, media motion pictures kind of work in regards of, more or less shaping behavior, or shaping a culture, an idea, or a thought process to a whole generation. I think it helps facilitate certain things, especially talking points as such. And oh man, it's an interesting examination for sure. I mean, I have my reservations, but who knows? It's such a big idea at this point. There's so much. Obviously, there's going to be scrutiny if you go down every single company. To your point, there's always going to
Yeah.
be whatever fits what you're looking for. You can look for all the bad shit, and you look for all the good shit,
Mm-hmm.
and then it kind of just falls where you make peace with the information, and then you just move on. Or at least that's how
Like,
I'm seeing it.
like one of the things I was told in the Navy was that it's just a microcosm of society, right? So you're gonna get people that are gonna fall through, are gonna be a certain percentage of people are shady or steal or do things like that. It's almost hard to stop that. Like, you try to filter it out, but there's still gonna be a percentage of people like that in there,
Mm-hmm.
So with businesses, it's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? There's gonna be uh I mean, most likely certain business won't, but there are going to be certain characteristics that slip right through. There's going to be certain people who are probably doing fraud and trying to get it, that we don't even hear about. You know, so I mean, depending on how you look at it, at one point, Coca-Cola used to actually have Coke in it. That just sounds like a fun time. That's what. So, you know,
Disney is interesting. I'll tell you that. I have. It's just the idea is fascinating of Disney and how big it's gotten, and
yeah, huge.
yeah, like huge, huge. because everybody knows Disney has gained, how much of a following in the last in our lifetime, like our lifetime, where we're inheriting the old, movies, and then we roll through with the Lion King and shit, Beauty and the Beast, and fucking Aladdin and shit. Like that's our era. Like you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like, damn, you got Peebo Bryson up in there. You know what I'm saying? Like Celine Dion. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
you talking about that's a number one hit. That's with a Disney movie.
yeah. Oh, I just can't wait to be king. Like,
Come
come
on,
on.
man. Hakuna
Lion King,
Matata. Come on, man.
Hakuna Matata, like
Circle of Life.
Circle of Life. You got Elton John
Come on, man.
that did that.
Pocahontas. Come on, man.
Poking a hot ass, you know what I'm saying?
Come on,
Woo!
man. What else they have? What's that
We have
Chinese joint?
Mulan. We
Yeah,
have Mulan.
Mulan. Come on,
Mm-hmm.
man.
I think I stopped by Mulan because after a while I was like, okay, this is terrible. Because then they had like,
I can't
then
be
I
caught
had
watching
that,
this.
yeah, it can be like, I thought I was stopped. I couldn't be caught watching Aladdin at first. I was like, and I remember I was in El Central. I was like, man, I ain't watching that. That's for kids and girls, man. I'm like 11 or 12 years old, right?
Yeah.
I go see that movie. I was like, yo, that was dope. Yo, that
And the
was dope,
song, man.
though.
A
Yo,
whole new world.
Aladdin.
A whole new
Oh
world.
man.
Come on, man. A whole new world.
And then be like, I don't want to see Lion King, and see Lion King was like, yo, that was kind of fire,
Oh, Mufasa.
dude, man. Like
So
epic.
okay.
It was epic.
See, so does Disney play this role? All right, this is a angel's advocate or a good idea.
Mhm.
All they're doing is just mirroring what culture is or for that generation, whatever that age range is, right? And maybe that's why we see out of sorts with it now, or maybe I don't know, whatever conclusion people come up with, but maybe just reflecting on those movies, right? The impact of them, and we could probably go
Yeah,
into each movie and just dissect it for its social tones in retrospect. But at its time, though, you're talking about these are like blockbuster. At least that's how it felt. Like everybody in the mom was, singing it, and everybody was about it. That's what it felt
yeah,
like. So, in trying to understand its impact, and is it more of life imitating art or art imitating life? Is this programming to get us into a way of certain thinking somehow? They slip all these, you know, secret, muses and tones and
yeah. I
things.
think
You
I
know what
think
I'm
a lot of
saying?
I think a lot
Yeah.
of things that they do is trying to push the agenda of thinking on people. You know, a lot of every like okay, so uh um I was gonna say sorry, I just got a text message. There's I try to think of like you got Wreck It Ralph, it was talking about how people don't have to be archetyped to whatever that what you look, that there's people more than what they really are, you know what I'm saying? Like you're not a bad person, you don't have to play a role, you can be useful, but also understand that we all have parts in life or roles in life, and that's not a bad thing. Um, I feel like Toy Story for a while was about friendship. You know, I think well, I didn't they didn't really need to make a fourth one. I don't know why, but like like the third one, moving on, moving forward. I don't know if you saw the third one, but it was like the Andy was finally going to college, growing up, and they were like, well, they're feeling left out, but then at one point in all our lives, we have to move forward and go on to the second chapter of our life or whatever,
Crazy.
right? So like, and then like the toys trying to find what their purpose is since they're not Andy's toys anymore. What are they, right?
Oh man, that's deep.
So you know, a lot of it is just like even the newer one like Soul, like the later ones have been more like Soul was another one where was Jamie Foxx's voice where a piano uh, instructor or a music instructor in high school finally got his big chance, right? And then he dies, right? But like you have someone who kind of lost his soul on doing other things and didn't really get to appreciate life in the moment until he had the opportunity to what he dreamt to do. And so it's like there's just all these like stories that they try to tell within people to think.
As you were saying that, the thing that just came to mind was like Bambi.
That one was so tragic. Like
That's like the
what you
first 5 minutes.
wow, wow, like
What are we doing here?
Traumatized,
You know what I'm
bruh.
saying? Yeah. Initially, right off the bat. I mean, I get the
Blah.
emotional hook and all that and the story, I get it, but damn, like this is why sometimes as you're describing certain things, it's like, how serious does it gotta be? Because some of those things it feels like they're really trying to, start a conversation or get, a mind going. And good or bad, it's an interesting thought.
No, yeah, no, I mean it was, and then like I also felt like it was kind of trying to like go get the people who hunted too, you know? Like for some reason I don't know, like I feel like that was the beginning stages of me hearing about like people mad at like hunting for sport, like for fun or sport, you know what I'm saying?
Mm. Yeah, a big like yeah, I do remember that. That was huge.
You know, and it still is like some people absolutely can't stand that people do that, and that's why they kind of have like certain times or hunting seasons, right, where you can't hunt certain things until a certain season to allow the it to replenish and grow or whatever, you know. And I kind of wanted to say that was the case, right? The Bambi's um that like Bambi's mom got shot, right,
Yeah.
by a hunter, right?
Yeah. Yeah. See, interesting. That's a very interesting correlation right there. Because that does
Yeah,
introduce kind of, from a political standpoint, or at least in the way we reflect on history. Yeah, that was definitely a talking point. At least that idea got introduced to a whole nother generation.
yeah. Like
Before
you think
that, you
about
don't have a concept like, yo, whatever. And then the parents have to explain to you, and they're just, kind of telling you in real time, like, here's what's happened. And then you're like, seed planted. Next, like, and then
yeah,
it keeps on going, like without avail. That's in the first 5 minutes of the movie, first 10. You know what I'm saying? Like, God,
yeah.
man, that is traumatic. You know,
It isn't, you know, crazy about it is like well, not crazy, like there's things that are planted to us in a young age, like carpool. I remember when that was a big deal in Sacramento. Carpool started becoming a big deal. The triangle, people were like, "What? Yeah, it's a new thing that they're incorporating, you know, so we can save the ozone layer." Remember hearing about how spraying a certain spray tan was damaging the ozone layer,
what
and that
happened
was
to
the
the
big
ozone
deal.
layer, man?
Yeah, like no one really talks about that
Man,
anymore.
that shit was hot in the '90s, man. We got to bring that back. Ozone
Yeah,
layer, man.
yeah,
What's up? Let's
man.
figure
You
out
know
the
what I'm saying?
ozone layer.
Yeah.
It's right behind me. That's what I thought it looked like.
Yeah, no, like I was like, what? Like I know it's like the outer layer of the Earth that keeps the air, which is another whole
And
another thing when I think about. Yeah, I was like, right, like something is trapping the air in, you know,
oh man,
but it's clear enough to where. Well, I mean, the only thing I can think is realistically is gravity keeps the air in to a certain point, and once it passes a certain level, it just kind of like goes away, kind of like the gases in Jupiter and Mars, right? There's a certain level of gravity that's keeping it there, because that's the only thing that makes kind of sense.
shit, you already know where I stand with that nonsense.
It's all, yeah, it's all fake. It's all,
Well, I'm looking at behind you. I'm like, I don't know what it is, right? But it does feel like we're a little more stationary, at least in my opinion. And then whatever's in the earth is doing something, and then whatever's above that, it's way beyond our knowledge, I think.
mm,
I'm not saying the space shit ain't real, but I think the way that it's told to us, I think it's a different idea now. I'm thinking like, past where I'm at, if this is the North Pole, right? And
yeah,
if you go past this, I'm thinking there's, the island of Mars, or the island of Jupiter, or the island of this. I think there's just islands like
yeah.
going farther, both north and south, or something like that. In terms of what's up, according to us, I'm like, ooh, that one is. I
I know,
understand why
right?
the mysteries of motherfuckers just smoking and just looking up in the sky forever
Yeah,
trying to figure it out.
yeah. Like what we think is north when we look up, that's probably someone else's down.
I mean, it
Or,
stays
or,
it
or
stays there. It's so crazy. The Polaris stays there. Like, and then those time lapses, with the Starry Night look when
yeah,
it's all slow, but that North Star stays like that. The compass always like what is that? And it's so
yeah,
strange because we're seeing the same constellations, we're seeing the same stars, right? But then in the idea of the fucking 3,000 miles an hour spinning plus the other spinning, and then we're also in the universe. I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, well, I gotta be seeing crazy shit in the air at some point, right? But instead, it's more like the same shit. I'm like, wait, so are we moving through? And that's what makes me think, like, oh, there's got to be. And I don't know the answer,
well,
but
what have you
it
ever done the
feels like it.
gravitron? Have you ever done the Gravitron?
Is that a ride like at
There's a
a?
ride. It's right at the state fair.
Is it when you're in the circle?
Yeah, and
Oh
then all of
yeah,
a
no,
sudden
I
you get
never done
to.
that shit. No, fuck no. I've
So
heard of
so
people doing it. Yes.
The Gravitron starts off and you're going like a certain way, right? And then it starts to spin so fast, and then all of a sudden you are no longer standing. The gravitational pull is holding you back, right? And then the beds or whatever you're on goes up and down and moves, right? And it just goes with it. But when you're at the beginning, you know you're moving, right? And you're seeing yourself move. But once it hits a certain point, you feel the pressure and you can feel yourself moving, but the thing in front of you doesn't look like it's moving at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you
Mm-hmm.
look to the left or right, you don't see you moving. You know, like
Yeah.
it's kind of like the perception that if this is better. How about the perception when you're in a car, right? You're in a car, you have the windows up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it windows up? I'm trying to remember how it looks. If you I think when you look outside the window, right, you're seeing the thing go really fast, right? But when
Yes.
you're not looking at it, it looks like it's just going slow. You know, and that's how perception is of stuff. I have to remember which one it is because if you did it one way, it looks perfectly fine. But once you look at it, you're like, what the how's it going that fast? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It has to do with the perception of how we see things and things are illusion, you know.
Yes. That is very fascinating. I
I was saying it
agree.
all wrong, and I forgot, like, because I haven't been passenger side of my best friend's ride in a very long time, so I forgot
Mm.
what it looks like. But it's like if you look directly at outside the window, you see it moving fast. But if you were to
Mm.
look at it a certain forward, it's just going. It's like it's going, and then once it gets past a certain part, it goes. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it has to do with some weird perception of stuff. You know?
Mm. Vision is fascinating in what we can see as human beings.
Yeah, it is. And like because I do photography, right? It's like when I'm trying to take a picture of something and I envision it a certain way, it doesn't come out on the lens. You can adjust the lens. And you're like, how is it that I can look at the moon and then somehow focus on the moon and it seems like it's big, but then I get a camera out and I try to zoom into the moon or whatever, and it's still just a speck on the camera, you know,
Mm.
unless I get a particular zoom lens on it. But it's not big, but you can look at it and it looks like as in place, you can see the size of that, and you can see the size of their home, and it doesn't look super small. But when you take a picture of it, it looks super small. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even when you zoom in, I like it's just a weird perception of things and how our eyes adjust really quick, right?
Mm.
Like if you in certain very dark areas, your eyes will sooner or later adjust to certain things and see a little bit, you know, not very very dark spots, but if you're in the dark area long enough, you'll get like a sense of direction to things, you know?
I agree. I think that's why we are, in cities and
Mhm.
not to look up ever. The whole goal is to not ever look up, like cloud the vision at night with lights. Cars, you're not really looking up. You always got to look around where you're going.
Mhm.
They don't really watch you outside. Uh, yeah, I mean, think about it. We read, in history books as the narrative goes, like, people just used to have bonfires and look at the stars and try to figure whatever out they needed to figure out. And it seems like that's always been a weird practice of
Mhm.
ancient cultures. And then our culture's like, nah, we got this technology stuff.
Yeah,
We're
we're looking
good.
down. We're looking down at our
Yeah,
phones and
yeah,
not and
exactly.
don't look up. Did
Don't
you ever
look
watch
up.
that movie?
No, I haven't still, but I mean, I could
Oh,
get the gist of it. I've watched the trailer, I think, and I've heard some people comment on it. I mean, I'll get around to it at some point, but um, yeah, it's an interesting idea because that's a notion. It seems like that was also introduced in our era, like other alternative ways to see things, especially in
yeah,
hip hop music at that time. There was a lot of artists you could get your hands on that were, talking about some, as we would recall back then, some deep shit or some shit that, underground stuff, or they would reference some things that you're like, whoa. And even back then, just trying to find even information on it was difficult. Where
yeah.
now you could, find any lyrics and just look up what the fuck they're talking about and just dive deep into them, But back
And you're
then,
hoping, yeah,
you're just kind of getting the info as it goes, and just life was just so in comparison to today, as we were talking about, looking up, looking down, and what you were talking about. And yeah, man, the moon is strange itself. I've come across strange theories of, like whatever the black sun is. Are you aware of the black sun, or do you know anything about that?
I don't know about that.
You've heard of
All
it
I can
though.
all I can think of is Black Hole Sun. Won't you come and wash away the pain? That song,
Oh
which
man.
I absolutely love that song though.
Hey, hey, it's an interesting theory. I mean, I barely just came across in some of my research, but it's a fascinating theory from the past, and it's embraced by a couple different traditions. But it's the idea of, like Alaska, right? It might to understand that Alaska does have points in the year where it's just all sun.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like a couple of days, like it's rare, but yeah.
Yeah. So there's this theory or idea that has been referenced in, certain cultures of a two suns existing, and I was like, that is a fascinating idea. But it made me think about Alaska. And I think about a lot of these things I come across now, and the internet's a wacky place, however see fit. But
Yeah,
the information is riveting, because there's just so much of it, and there seems to be um, a lot of the remnants still around, I guess. If and to your point about our perspective with vision, I think it goes the same with the mind, man. It's really perspective, and just trying to, whatever that terminology is, of open-mindedness. um I'm definitely open to a lot of different things now, and trying to really see things more or less in a different light. And it's very entertaining to me, because it's almost like a little puzzle, and just trying to really, oh, okay, take that. Okay, now look at it this way. Like, oh, it's compelling nonetheless. And yeah, that perception stuff is fascinating. The moon looking down all the time. I mean, the ozone layer. Come on, man. What's
dude,
going on here?
it's funny because I remember when I was younger, I used to think that the sun was during the day and the moon was at night, right?
Hmm.
But then there's times where you can look up and you can still see the outline of the moon in the sky, right? And I used to be like, right? I mean, like you can still see part of it, and you're
In
like,
the morning for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to be like, what? You know, I don't know when it was like after I like you're like 11 or 12 when you start to see is like, wait, the moon's still. How's that even possible? How is that even? But that's because we didn't know. And as we get older, we sometimes learn more, and sometimes we forget a lot, you know. But yeah, you
I
start to
honestly,
see.
dude, I think that question is still up and barely even, scratched for sure. I think so, because it's just whatever that shit is fascinating up there.
Yeah.
Everything tied to it, whether it's the landing on it, which I have some reservations clearly, um, and even to this day, what its existence is, and even its existence in pop culture, how it's referenced, is such a strange thing. And then it's in relation to the sun,
Yeah.
and kind of just that little thing you pointed out. Like, yeah, it's strange that the moon and the sun would be at the same time. Because I've also seen the footage of the two sun thing I was talking about. There are
Mhm.
people that have recorded it in like the last 2 years, that there will be days where you'll see a sun, and then you'll see another bright situation as a different entity, like really close
Mhm.
to it, type of thing. It's like, and then you'll still see the moon on the other side. You're like, what is going on really? But like I said,
Yeah.
this is not something that isn't shared. The only time you ever really see this shit is like when you're in Hawaii, right? When the last time you went to Hawaii, when you're driving down and sun starts going down, what's everybody doing?
You mean chilling? Or I'm sorry,
Like
like
out there seeing the sun go down.
oh, people usually just chilling, looking at the pictures, or like feeling good, looking outside. That's why I think of Hawaii. When I see it, I'm like taking a picture.
But when you're out, but have you been out there at the time of sundown? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but there'd be times when I'm like trying to make it back to the place where we're staying at, and as the sun's going down, you see everybody park out and just stand off to the beach or the coast and just see the sun go down.
Oh, I mean that's I guess I mean kind of like what I was saying, but yeah, yeah, like
Yes,
it's
yes,
like they'll see
yes,
the horizon go down on the
yes,
sun or whatever,
yes, yes.
taking pictures or whatever. Yeah,
But that's the only time people are actually doing that, is on a vacation. Vacations, people only get like a week every year to do that. And they all
yeah,
go at the
right.
same time, and however that works. But there's a point there of looking up, and I think there's more questions than answers at this point, at least for me.
Well, or even like there's little things that like okay, so all right, so how there's there's more months with 31 days, right? I think there's like 6 or 7 months with 31 days, and 5 months with 30 or less, and one's 28, right? And I'm like, because I'm like a balanced type of, I need even balanced type of stuff. It trips me out that that as circular as our world is, right? 360 degrees is a round circle, but yet we do 365 days, which is odd, 5 days off, right? And every 4 years we have an additional day, right? And so it's like numerically, number wise, I'm like 365 days is an odd number. And when you have an odd number, like most things don't really add up evenly over time, right? I mean, maybe a couple of days you do 365, 365. That'll be doing really quick math. You're gonna have an even day on one, or it's gonna balance out on those two, right? And then you have another 365, then you have 366, which makes it odd, right, on those 4 years. Um, just because it's 6 and 5 equals odd. But it's like weird to me that these days are all off, not balanced in a way, right? Which also makes me question, like, are our seasons actually off too? Because as we see, it's getting hotter right now where we're at. And then because you look at certain holidays, right? They're based off the lunar cycle, lunar scale, right? So I believe it's Ramadan and is it Ramadan and what's the other one that is Ramadan for Jewish or is that for Muslim?
Ramadan is, I believe, Muslim faith.
And then Rosh Hashanah,
Rosh Hashanah is
and then
Jewish,
there's also the Chinese New Year's, which
the lunar
changes. Yeah. Lunar
yes.
shoot, yeah, right, which changes, right?
February, somewhere around that time, depending.
And theirs are based off of a certain particular date, but it creeps up every so often every year, right? And so I was just thinking, like, maybe our seasons are the same, but the way we calculated the months and days are off. You know, I did a really long explanation on that, but you know what I'm saying? It was like maybe our seasons.
I think time is very. I mean, I never seen it. I never really heard of it breaking down in like the just what you were saying. I mean, I think I've heard elements of it, but to really do the numerical portion, like the true math of it, you're like, it just gut feeling. You're like, it's just what this doesn't even make really any sense. It's kind of strange, and them pointing out the seasons and really trying to understand how seasons are taught to us, at least in the formal education, is always, well, this is ancient culture, this is how they first learned how to know when the harvest was, and the moon and the sun, and knew when, and they would be contributing to the gods of the sun, like sun gods, and they would be worshiping kind of like that, like a pagan style, or whatever that is. Yeah. Oh.
It just like, to me, because like I like in a weird number reason, I'm like, I hate odd numbers. Right? We have everything. So far. We have 360. 360 is a whole circle. We have 24 hours, right? Which is even number. 60 minutes, even number. 60 seconds, even number. Right?
Yeah.
But the only thing that's odd is our days.
What is the correct math? What is the correct amount of days to have?
Well, if you did 365 and you divide by 30 days, that's 12.16 months, right?
Okay.
I don't know what the correct math is. I'm just saying that it, like, from the math that we are taught, it's literally odd to have 365 days when everything else in our timing scale is even. You know what I'm saying?
But see, that's what I'm thinking. See, so the reason why I'm asking is because what if the right answer like used to exist, and then something happened, and now time is being kind of and I think there's movies made about certain ideas like this, right? Like time is more of a control kind of mechanism, as opposed to, or it's like it's an idea, theory, whatever you want to call it. It's just something that isn't what naturally this is. And even in the way it's explained, because you said that's a weird, right? Everything lines up except this. Like, why would it be this? and you saying that, it's like, yeah, that is kind of strange.
Well, even like, okay, so they say that the Earth is at a tilt,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Who says that? It rotates at a tilt supposedly.
Okay.
From our point, from a certain point of view, as Obi-Wan Kenobi would say,
True.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's tilting exactly what it's not. Maybe it's not at the tilt. Maybe it's supposed to be at a certain area that it's at, right? Because there's a couple of questions I have to it too, because they say that the winter, obviously the winter we're colder because of where we're at, and how the Earth is further away from the sun during that time because our was not solar system. Sorry, I forgot the proper term. Where we, the Earth's rotation, gravitational. What's the proper term? I forgot that term where we rotate around the sun.
That sounds like science
The
to me. It's
the the
confusing as fuck.
orbital shape around the sun is not necessarily a full circle. It's kind of like offset. So supposedly we go around. I don't know. You can't see it, but we go
Yeah.
around. One way is far, and then one way is kind of closer. So even that's not even. You pause right now.
No, I am paused for real. it
Am I
is
saying some
it's
weird stuff right now?
no, I mean, I understand like that you trying to explain it, right? In the way that um the way just trying to explain it is already confusing, because I get what you're saying. Like the way I've seen it, it's almost trying to like DJ with like nine turntables going different directions. Like, yeah, so it's kind of doing it's harmonizing, but it's just doing this. It's a kind of, I'm like, yo, that's a lot of spinning, and then the moon doesn't spin at all, but it spins with us, but just doesn't spin itself. And you know what I'm saying? Like, and then the moon's like hella far, but we can't see really any other planets. I mean, unless you have like a super telescope, maybe
Yeah,
like the one
I
in the
thought the
Vatican.
moon I thought the moon goes around us.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it doesn't spin though. The moon doesn't spin.
Oh, the moon does. Okay, that okay, but so you're saying it's just going like this?
Yeah, you've seen it,
Not
right?
yeah.
It's like the same
It's
face
yeah.
all the
So it's
time.
going it's going this way and not going like it's not spinning. It's not like
No,
two things spinning like this
no,
like that. Yeah, it's just like
it's just
yeah.
one little thing, not spinning at all. So that's why it's like, okay, that's one thing. But they say that's only our gravitational pull, right, or something like that. So the moon is tied to us, right? So that's why it's able to follow us, but we're spinning way faster. The moon's spinning with us, but the Earth is spinning like 3,000 something miles per hour,
Yeah,
right?
3,000 miles an hour. They said because I remember someone say like if you just stay still, you don't realize that you're moving 3,000 miles an hour. It's like what
Yeah, that
something.
sounds strange to me, but regardless, if
Yeah,
that's how it is, because I'm, obviously a commoner. So you're spinning, and then the moon's spinning, and then we're at a tilt. I think an oblong shape, according to some people, but then the North Star stays, and the stars kind of stay or in some alignment more with the solstice and the equinox, as opposed to whatever time
now
based
you
stuff.
got me tripping out like the North Star doesn't change at all.
That's what I'm saying. Am I wrong in thinking that? Because I'm
No, no,
pretty
no, 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 no.
sure.
You're not. But like to think like that of all things, if that thing is like, I am not. I'm always here with you. I will never leave you.
That's why when you're explaining all the circular motions and all that, I'm like, I get it, but it's still, I'm like, but I could see the North Star. Like, I get what you're saying, but I ain't seeing like all the spinning shit and all that. I ain't seeing none of that. All I see is it's like the sun and the moon are like co-workers, and like, yo, I'm coming in. Cool, man. I'm on my, all
Yeah.
right, I'm out. All right, bro.
All
See you later.
right. Good day. Good day. I'm out.
And the moon
I'm
comes in
out.
there. All right, motherfucker, let's go.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The sun's like, all right, man. I'm here. I got all the work to do. What do you mean you got all the work? I gotta radiate this stuff and grow. You know what I'm
That's it.
saying?
I
I gotta
gotta
like
put in the
grow
heavy
these
work.
trees, put in like
Mm-hmm.
heavy work, gotta give them all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. And then was like, all right, cool, man. Well, it's time for me to do the part. Who's ready to party, motherfuckers? Because everybody's doing a party. Who's ready to get like
Oh, for
it's
real.
like actually because this is probably where even though I don't know if this is what they're saying, it's like the sun is God and the moon is devil, right? Because all the the crazy stuff will happen at night, more crime at night,
The freaks
sex at
come
night,
out at night.
yeah, the
I
drinking,
mean,
like
come out at
what's
night.
up? Yeah,
See,
unless
that's
you're during the summer where people get drunk on the river.
but see it. I mean, that's an honest, kind of explanation. That is how it really breaks down, at least in this culture of how simplifying it, at least in a term like that. That's easy to understand. That's easy to relate to, you know. I think that's what it is. Sun is the AM radio, and then moon is the thing. But I mean, like I said, all that's been the North Star is there. The constellations are like, the Orion or whatever,
Hmm.
the belt of
Yeah, the
Orion,
big
the
the
Big
Big
Dipper.
Dipper.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like the stars of Orion. Like those don't change. So are we really spinning like how we say we're spinning through space? And I don't know, but it's I think it's just it's a topic worth at least looking into in varying degrees for individual sake, to just really look at that and just kind of think like, that's why I always think about intuition. I'm like, what does it really feel like? When you say like the numbers are off, like I'm thinking, like, what do you think about Chinese like astrology or Chinese zodiac, Chinese numerology, things like that? Are you familiar with any of those things? When you eat like a Chinese buffet,
Uh,
like the fucking zodiac signs and like, oh, the year of the rat, year of the
oh
boar.
no, I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's
Okay.
interesting. I just I don't bear any weight on it because, like,
Mm.
I was watching this group, Ab and Preach. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about your your astrological sign is they're not saying it's racist, but it's prejudice, right? Because people will base you off of how you're acting based off your astrological sign, which has nothing to do with how you are as a person, but they relate it to everything you're doing as a person. I'm born in the month of May, right? Early May. Then I'm a tourist, right? That means I'm supposed to be bullheaded or whatever. And then they also changed the dates where they said, oh, I think they did an adjustment where some people weren't what they were anymore, right? And it's just like, so all of a sudden I'm born in a particular time and I'm supposed to act like everybody like that. How's that even possible? You know?
What do you think that is? Like, why do you think astrology is looked at that way?
I mean, I mean, maybe there's a similarity to people being born under the same frequencies. Maybe that's it, right? Maybe if we were born under the same frequency, there's it affects us. I don't know. I just there's a part of me that also doesn't want to believe that something I can't control is exactly controlling me. You
Mm.
know, like, oh yeah, you're a tourist, so you're this way, aren't you? And then people hold it so much against you, right? Like, oh, you're Taurus, you're bullheaded. Yeah, we our signs don't match compatible. Bitch, the fuck up. This dick matches perfectly fine with your mouth.
Man.
Like,
I mean, the astrology is strange because it does seem like there is a subsect of the population that do, it is life and death, and rightfully so. It's to me, it's no different than people, that are religious for different factions of religion.
right?
Everybody
No,
has
it's
some. I think astrology is right up there. I think the way that it's interpreted, like what you're saying, I think that is the kind of when it becomes a money making business. I think
yeah,
that's what the result is. I think I think it's more along the lines of your frequency and comment. I think that's in its simplicity form. I think it's just,
yeah.
yeah, you are born of this sun and moon of this year. It shares whatever that world is, of frequency, chakra, energy, that what they would say.
There's a
Yeah,
solar plex with that year, which radiated a certain amount of radiation into the
exactly.
world that
Yeah.
causes most
Mm-hmm.
people to be this way, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. I could see more of that because even the way you explain that seems something that's a little more. I could believe in something like that because
Mm-hmm.
you understand music to some degree, so clearly the the kind of parallels are easy to understand, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why to me I'm like, is it that far fetched to really look at the world and see possibly a very huge relation with the stuff you're talking about? It's almost, it would say, sacred geometry at this point. Especially numerology stuff is always considered some form of sacred geometry,
Mm-hmm.
in varying ways. The the earth, all those things, like those are like lost, kind of lost educations in a way. It's like to look at these forms of numbers or whatever it may be as this is in relation to the world. Like this clearly is all, it's all numerical.
So,
Everything, the
so
architecture is numerical, like everything, like the way it's mapped out, the distances, and there's way more, as you would say, intelligent design uh
Yeah.
associated with this world, but the harmony in the way that, when you talk about frequency, it's like, who are we in the experience of what all this is? And that's the shit that's like, oh yeah, we're getting into some
Yo, so
crazy
now
stuff.
now I just had like a super high moment, which I don't look right. All
I
of a
gave it to you,
sudden,
brother. I
yeah,
gave it
you
to
did.
you.
You did because now you what you did was numerology, and I started thinking about what I felt about numbers and even numbers of the
Yeah.
balance, and then I just thought like, wait a minute, numerology, blah blah. Maybe the odd numbers are really the balanced one, right? Because you have evenly two on one side, or like just say you have three. You have one on one side, you have one on another. Then you have something in the middle that could see both. And maybe that's what balance is. You have five, you have two on one side, two on the other side, and you have one in the middle that sees both. And that's a balanced outlook, right? Because if you have four, you have two on one side, you are balanced in a way, but you have nothing that will be able to see the middle,
The third eye.
the third eye, right? And actually they say that triangles are the strongest structure.
See, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Everything that is told to us is bad, right? Especially in that world, like geometry, sacred geometry, and at least at how it's, represented in certain, culture themes, whatever you want to say. Um, it seems like that is a lot, at least to me, this, okay, important enough to float out there as a serious train of thought to, make sense of the world, as a degree of making sense of the world. That's a very good start because, numbers are numbers.
Mm-hmm.
This is some shit that's been passed down. Luckily, whoever was to our evolution theory, whoever was the fish that was like, finally, and then whoever was the fish that was like, I got a leg, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah,
Hey, like that is the numerology, the music. That shit is like, okay, we got to hold on to this stuff, and we need to really learn about what this shit really is, and it's important to us. And how do we really use this shit to our advantage? Like, clearly these are important, and clearly these are things from some world that is maybe beyond our scope, right? So what
yeah,
is it we need to do to really dabble into this and really use this, or find out what this earth really is at its crowning achievement, whatever it may be, because this stuff is so unreal. At least
yeah,
when you just talk about music and the fact of frequency, like even that bridge right there, like that's how much math is in that shit. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
God damn, that's a fucking
Like
math equation and a half.
just to build it, like, okay, how are we gonna get this across? And
Oh man,
you
ain't no
know,
one freehanding that. That ain't no
no.
like, oh man, it's a
Hey, yo,
sketch.